Is there a right way and a wrong way of setting up a limited company? Well, yes, there is actually, and you need to know what's the right way before you make any mistakes. Check out this video. There we go. So let's just talk about this for a second. There's a disaster assessment for a limited company. Let's talk about some of the things that we've seen actually, because we should spend a couple of minutes on this, because I know you can go to company formation, companies 1, 2, 3, whatever they're called. You can even go to company's house and set up a limited company. It's really, really cheap. But some of the disasters I see are shareholders, shareholder agreements. What kind of issues have you seen when you look at self-assessment tax returns?
In terms of the connection to limited company structuring? Do you
mean? So someone coming in with ordinary shares.
Okay. So most of the companies that can help you set up a limited company, they're fantastic, but they really need you to know what you're doing, and they need you to be aware of much of the law around the Companies Act, as well as the tax laws and legislation. And if you don't have a grounding in that kind of data, you're in danger of creating a company that actually doesn't do anything you want it to do and creates a huge onerous burden on you, never mind the tax, because of the mistakes that you've made in its construction and the way that the likes of Companies House might come after you to correct them.
I like what you did there, by the way.
Did I?
Yeah, because you said construction, which is property related. Well done. That's very good.
But one of the biggest issues that we see more often than not, and that we end up working with our clients pretty much from the get-go when they come to us with already a created company, is restructuring the shareholdings, because they're often designed in such a way that makes it very tax inefficient and makes it inflexible. So there's no agility in the structure to allow you to develop your business tax efficiently, as well as plan how to involve perhaps third parties, other members of the family, or plan on how you might leave it as a legacy to those family members as well in a really structured and tax efficient way. So we often find that we have to do that work pretty early on. And if that business has been set up some time and it has inherent value in that business already as well, then it may be something that can't be fixed easily or cheaply, and it's likely to create massive tax issues for you there and then when we're trying to structure it. It will save you lots of tax, most likely. We wouldn't be suggesting if it wouldn't, but it's probably going to cost you some serious money to begin with to get it in the right structure.
But there's also issues with structures in regards to people having multiple companies. So we've seen accountants say to clients, well, you need a limited company per buy-to-let property.
It's what I call the Branson effect, the string of Richard Branson Virgin companies. You don't necessarily need that. We're very much an organisation and a team that wants to minimise the number of companies. Back to my point, limited company is going to cost you £2,500 to £5,000 a year. Do you really want 10 of them? If you don't need 10, that's going to cost you an awful lot of money to look after.
And back to administration, bookkeeping, deadlines, etc.
Yes.
The other side of that is kind of missed opportunities. So people often talk about, yes, ordinary share structures using ABC shares. What about freezer shares, growth shares?
And this is where the opportunities start to really present themselves, because there are ways in which you can encourage and structure a business to move almost to someone else's ownership when certain things happen. You can also have individuals come online, so to speak, into the business at a later point, again, when a particular activity or income is triggered, so that they start to share in that income as well. And there's lots of different ways that you can do it to make it really flexible and really very family oriented. So many of our clients talk about leaving a legacy and making sure that their families know how to take care of that legacy. And some of these structuring methodologies actually encourage and require those individuals to start to show their maturity and capability before they actually get anything out of those shares. So it's a great methodology as well of training up your family to take on the legacy when you're perhaps not wanting either to do it or sadly no longer here.
And one of the other disasters is not using freezer growth shares for inheritance tax purposes, which passes on that legacy without the 40% inheritance tax. But the other side to setting up a company in a real bad way is the fact that you've got adult children. So, as an example, you might have a 20-year-old going to university. You're taking money out of the limited company in the most tax inefficient way possible, only to give it to your child to, have a nice lifestyle in the digs of the university. When actually you could have made them a shareholder and given them £2,000 worth of tax-free dividends, and they're likely to be on a lower tax band than you anyhow. Anyhow, so that's never going to leave me. You could be more tax efficient structure with using A, B, C, D, E, F share structures. We have seen some disasters of people thinking that having ordinary shares of one share each allows you to differentiate your dividends, and it can't, can it?
No. So you need to be very careful that if you're in the same share class as your other shareholders, then particularly if you're married to one another as shareholders, so it's a husband-wife example, business activity, then if you are both in the same share class, if one of you wishes to take dividends, then typically both of you need to take those dividends. And that's not always tax efficient. We see scenarios where perhaps one of the spouses is a higher or additional rate taxpayer and the other spouse has no tax position. Unless you're both taking out dividends. So the higher or additional rate taxpayer is now paying out massive amounts of money on tax for dividends, then the no rate taxpayer can't take any. So you've got to really think through that process very carefully. And that's where structuring your shares, for example, into different share classes, alongside shareholder agreements, looking at growth shares, looking at freezer shares, is going to pay, without making it sound like a pun to Simon's idea, pay dividends.
Yeah. And I think the other one to finalize this point of disasters and setting up limited companies is setting something up which then you need money for. So if you then go to a mortgage company and say, I need lending, the structure you have in place may actually be refused. So we constantly work with clients to educate them on being tax efficient whilst being able to get money from the banks. So we spend a lot of time making sure that our clients are structured in the right way that enables both of these things to work.
And sometimes there's a balance to be had. So you can either be rigorously tax efficient, ruthless almost tax efficient, but get no lending, or vice versa.
Yeah, interesting enough. So Tiago Silva has come on. So good evening, Tiago.
Hi, Tiago.
Who said Mo helped me on that. I now need to learn how to change from A to B shares. And that's what we're here for, Tiago. So book those tax calls. And clients listening, it's great that you're listening to a live environment, but do make sure you utilize the tax advisors. That's what they're there for. And I can tell you now, there's plenty of availability to get back tax calls booked in with them. So make sure you do that as possible.